In small tourist towns, you can usually find a crappy ghost tour. They cost about $70 and usually consist of you being carted around to cemeteries, haunted houses, and abandoned prisons. You'll hear tales of long-lost loves, unjust executions, and spirits who still call out from beyond. Sometimes your tour guide will wear a funny wig. Sometimes the stories won't make any sense at all. And other times, a random person will walk by with their dog and forget to bring a pooper scooper. But nothing changes the simple fact that crappy ghost tours are kind of the best. And with a name like Murdered Soul Suspect, I can safely say that Airtight Games and Square-Enix have succeeded at checking off all the requirements necessary for their own awesome crappy ghost tour. The story is set in Salem, where a serial murderer, the Bell Killer, has been causing panic throughout the city. You play as the new detective, Ronan, one who's seen a thing or two on the streets, but for some reason takes off without backup and finds himself dead. A ghost with unfinished business. It's not exactly a fresh take on the whodunit, but it's campy enough to be fun, and it sets up the supernatural elements of Salem without feigning any realism. The narrative never goes anywhere terribly surprising, and it could do with higher stakes than quickly, before he kills again. But it's such a cheesy, comforting murder mystery that by virtue of being cohesive at all, it's successful. The only real sore point narratively is that Ronan O'Connor doesn't have any particularities that make him interesting, and he lacks the kind of humbling qualities that make other fictional detectives so appealing. Also his clothes, I don't like them. What's going on over here? And what's this all about? And why is everybody else wearing such normal clothes? Most of the game is made up of walking around crime scenes and looking for clues that'll help Ronan solve the case of the Bell Killer. It's extremely similar to LA Noire, except that the scope of the world is so much smaller that every case feels intimate without feeling too sectioned off. Salem is surprisingly fleshed out, and the small nuances go a long way to making it feel as old as its witch trials theme needs it to be. Because Ronan is a ghost, he can't interrogate the living, although you'll have plenty of conversations with the undead. So a lot of his detective work involves peering over people's shoulders, or in some cases possessing them to see straight through their eyes. It's not especially different from finding a clue on the floor, but it creates enough variety in the way that evidence manifests itself that you'll sometimes overlook obvious information. But really, the best part is that there is no shooting. None. Unfortunately, the lack of gunplay is offset by forced stealth sections, which really aren't so bad, but ideally wouldn't exist whatsoever. Murdered Soul Suspect is quaint. The story doesn't try to be a cinematic tour de force, the gameplay doesn't try to reinvent the adventure genre, but it's all very comforting. Bizarrely, I kept flashing back to myself playing PlayStation 1 and 2 games, not because Unreal Engine 3 suddenly feels ancient, but because it feels like a game from an era before everything had to be a smash hit. It's the kind of gem you find for cheap and end up loving because you had no expectations. It may sound like a backhanded compliment, but Murdered Soul Suspect is a throwaway novel, something you enjoy for a while and never think about again. Just like a ghost tour, I love it for what it is.